Gentlemen, it's an absolute privilege to be joined with you once again. However, it is under pretty dire circumstances, as unfortunately the European Union is finally getting closer to introducing their asinine EES and ETIAS system, something that I've been warning against on this channel for over 2 years now. Ever since this first broke out in the news, I've been warning against the ETIAS and the EES policy, respectively. For those of you that don't know, about 2 years ago, the European Union started talking about introducing the policy where if you had a passport that had visa-free access to Europe, they would abolish that in exchange for something more like the US visa-free policy, where even if you do have a strong passport that has a visa-free agreement with the US, you still have to get about 2 to 3 days approval from the US government to travel there before you can actually get on the plane and enter the United States. So it's pretty much the European version of the ESTA that the US has. The ESTA, again, I don't really agree with in theory, and I certainly don't agree with the EES or the ETIAS policy either. And they are two monumentally different things. The EES is going to be introduced from October of this year, 2025, and the ETIAS is going to be introduced a little bit later. But the EES first is one that a lot of people say isn't that bad in theory, and it's certainly not as bad in theory as the ETIAS, but the EES is still quite concerning for me, because what is the EES? The EES is going to impact all non-EU nationals, whether you have visa-free access to the European Union or not. This is going to impact you, where upon arrival into the European Union and the Schengen area non-EU countries, they will now take your fingerprint, scan your face, or take a photograph of your face, depending upon what technology they're using there, and they'll be able to track you significantly better. They'll be able to know exactly how long you've been in the Schengen area and what countries you've been to within the Schengen area, although for me this doesn't really make sense, because when I was traveling around Europe with my non-EU citizen friends, they all got questioned for how long they were there and they checked it on the system. So the majority of border controls already know how long non-EU citizens are in the Schengen area for, so that's not really changing anything. The major concern here for me is, why does any governing authority want your DNA in a fingerprint, and why do they want a scan of your face? Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, okay, but many countries around the world do this. A lot of countries in the Middle East do this, in Southeast Asia do this, in Latin America do this. Hell, even the US does this. So why are you against it happening in Europe? Let me make one thing very clear. I'm against it happening anywhere. I don't like this policy of taking your DNA and scanning your face at border control. So I don't know what that is. I'd much rather do paperwork and they just take a regular photograph of me if they have to take a photograph. I'm really not a fan of this modern technology, taking your fingerprint, taking your measurements, weighing you, checking if you have a six-pack, like any type of garbage policy. That's not something that I fly with and that I will stand next to. And this to me is concerning, because it's heading in the wrong direction. As I said, the EES in theory for now isn't that bad, but it's certainly not great compared to what it was before, where if you had visa-free access to the European Union and the Schengen area, you could just arrive at border control, you could arrive at the country, they'll check your passport, check your travel history, make sure you're a relatively clean person, and then let you in. They might ask you a few questions like, what are you doing here, things like that, but all in all, it was a very, very easy immigration process for a lot of people who had visa-free access to Europe. Well, now they're getting rid of that. They now want more information for whatever reason why. I don't know why someone's fingerprint is going to help people track how long they've been in a country or not, or a scan of their face. I don't believe in this nonsense. I really don't think it's going to help at all with personal traveling. And also, when we go on to the ETIAS, if you ever had visa-free access to Europe, the European Union wants to get rid of that for you. They now want to introduce the exact same policy that the US says, where you need about 2 to 3 days approval from the government of the European Union or whatever country in the EU or Schengen area that you want to travel to before you can even get on the plane. And that way they can decide when you want to enter the country. And by the way, just as with the ESTA program, even if you do qualify for the ESTA in your home country, upon arrival in the US immigration still has a right to deny you. Europe is doing the exact same thing. Now, again, to me, this part isn't majorly an issue, because I do believe that any country does have a right to deny a person entry. That, to me, isn't an issue. To me, the issue is this extra layer of bureaucracy. I really don't see the reason why. And for me, this is monumentally heading in the wrong direction. Because if anyone out there is optimistic enough to believe that this will get better, or that they'll try this out for a little while, but then they'll get rid of it because they'll watch my video and realize how stupid it was. Unfortunately, even for an optimistic guy like me, that is far too optimistic. Because if we analyze any country that introduces more bureaucracy, usually they don't reduce the bureaucracy after that. Usually they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and the people will always comply. We've seen that in the last 5 to 10 years or so, that no matter how much you push it, the majority of people will just comply and do it anyway. And I'm really against this, because who knows what other bureaucratic step they'll introduce next. Maybe they'll now have to make you wait a week before you can travel to Europe or something like that. And again, in theory, it doesn't sound that bad. But let's not forget what it's like now, where you could book a flight tonight, go to the airport tonight, get on the plane tonight, and be in Europe by tomorrow morning. That's a freedom that I do not want to be taken away from anyone, whether you have visa-free access to the European Union or you have a approved visa and you're going to travel to Europe tonight. Let's not forget how easy it is for people with visa-free access for any passport around the world, with visa-free access to many countries, just how easy it is right now to travel to fellow visa waiver agreement countries. Please do not forget how easy that is. And whether you have visa-free access or not, this is not about Western passports getting weaker. This is about setting a bad precedent for every single country out there. Because if they're going to introduce these bureaucratic steps for countries that they do allow people to enter in visa-free, do you really think they're going to make it easier for people who don't have visa-free access, or are they going to make their lives also a living hell out of this? And another reason why they introduce this is so that they can track exactly where you're going. They can track exactly where you've been at what time and what date and what country you flew to from there. And you might be thinking, okay, but I've got nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. Why is that a problem? Even if you have nothing to hide, do you like the idea of being followed? Even if you're the most innocent person in the world, do you like the idea of someone following behind you? I know I don't. If someone is even following me while I'm walking out on the street, I'm not a fan of it. So why would I be a fan of some government tracking me where I'm going? It doesn't make any sense at all. And this to me is a major issue, because while many countries around the world are becoming more welcoming to tourists, foreign nationals, immigrants who want to set up a life there, maybe they want to invest in a business there or start a business there, something like that, Europe is doing the exact opposite. They're becoming welcoming, and this is something that you really do hate to see, not as a European but just as an individual. I believe every country should be as welcoming as possible to get the best possible quality of people going to their countries. And for now, yes, it might just be a $10 ETIAS, a fingerprint scan and a facial scan at the airport. That might just be what it is now, but it isn't what it's going to be in the next 2 years or so. Who's to say they don't increase the price either? Again, I'm not the largest fan of fear-mongering here, but if you have any faith in any government, then I don't even know how one could to think that any government has your best interest at heart as a sovereign individual. They have either their own interests at heart or the greater good's interests at heart. And as a sovereign individual, I don't believe in the greater good, and I encourage all of you watching this to not believe in the greater good either, because we are all sovereign individuals with our own goals, and no one else's goals or opinions should be taken into consideration when we're trying to live our best lives here. I wholeheartedly believe in this. So European Union ETIAS policies are absolutely hot garbage. They're probably going to be introducing this around late 2026, so we still have some time, but unfortunately the fingerprint and the facial scans for non-EU nationals is going to start being introduced in late 2025, in October 2025. So that's coming very, very soon, unfortunately. And even if you are an EU citizen watching this video thinking, well, thank God this doesn't impact me, maybe for now it doesn't. Maybe for now you're absolutely fine. Maybe for now, as it is the policy, even when this EES and ETIAS is introduced, you can still travel around Europe. But what if they start putting limits on that? What if the Schengen area isn't going to be the open border zone that we all fell in love with it being? What if that's going to be the case in the future? I don't want that to be the case in the future, but this is not a good principle, and this is certainly not heading in the right direction. I'm certainly not optimistic about this policy at all. I think it is genuinely hot garbage. Let me know what you think about the EES or the ETIAS policy. Are you in support of this, or do you agree with my points here that I raised in this video? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. But as always, eternal victory to the free people.